Welcome back to the channel. We have with us today a man by the name of Mark Schultz. How you doing, Mark?
Good. Thanks for bringing me, Ari.
Of course, of course. And for those of you that don't know, Mark's claim to fame, among other things, is that he brought back the gold for America in wrestling in the Olympics in 1984, right?
Right.
So it's just like last week.
That's right.
I figure you got to be at least a little older than me because I was 9 years old in 1984. So
Okay.
it's quite a while
That's
ago.
yeah.
And
I'm celebrating my 29th birthday for the 33rd year.
that's awesome. Keep it going. So basically, I mean, I do these interviews quite often, but specifically with you, I wanted to get into, like I told you, your inspiration and your motivation because you know, I don't know why, but for me personally, I feel like the Olympics is next level. Like I think a lot of people think of like let's say boxing. Let's take boxing for a moment simply because that's simpler to analyze. That like Olympics is like on your way up, and then you're the heavyweight champion of the world. But I don't know, maybe it's because I'm old school, but that concept of bringing home the gold for your country to me is like the echelon, like the highest level of what a person can accomplish for themselves and for their country.
Yeah,
What do you,
that's the highest you can go in wrestling, or at least it was till MMA came to America. Now, they can have a pretty good career now in MMA. Well, nowadays wrestling has changed. There's a lot more money in it. There's I just got back from Philadelphia, where I was invited to the U.S. Wrestling Foundation annual banquet, where they gave out checks for $50,000 to Dave Taylor, and Jordan Burroughs. There, I We didn't get anything when I was competing. It was zero, nothing. So the only thing you could do is win a gold medal, and that's about as high as you could go. But nowadays you can make a career out of it. I mean, you win a gold medal in wrestling now. It's the highest paid gold medal in the Olympics. It's $250,000.
wow. But when you won that gold medal, you got paid, right? Or you didn't get paid
No,
even if you won the gold.
no, I didn't get anything.
Wow. So how does that make you feel? You look at WWE
I am
and Raw and
so
all these
bitter.
guys.
No, I don't care.
Oh, do you feel like these guys at so-called fake wrestling? I mean, they get some credit because even in the fake wrestling, there's a lot of talent. You could probably get more hurt, but these guys are multimillionaires, you know?
Yeah, it's everybody knows it's fake. Kurt Angle, he makes his living as a fake wrestler, but he's the real deal. He's an Olympic champion. I mean, it's incredible. But he could probably beat every pro wrestler with one hand tied behind his back. So, but he makes his living, doing that because what are we gonna do? There's not much to do after the Olympics. There's no, at least there wasn't for us when I was competing, and when he was competing.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, basically now he's a superstar. These guys are making money on the level of like TV show actors and movie stars and stuff like that. Triple H and, Heartbreak Kid and all those guys.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that begs, I can't get this correct, but I guess that begs the question, why would somebody get into a career that doesn't make money?
Well, I didn't do it for the money. I did it because I had a terrible lack of confidence when I was a kid. And I also just happened to be born into the same family as the greatest high school wrestler in history, an Olympic and world champion, Dave Schultz. And, I was when I was a gymnast before I was a wrestler. And I was the Northern California all around state gymnastics champion. And for my age group, which was 15, 16-year olds. And then, but it wasn't giving me the confidence that I knew I needed to be happy with myself. So I, I was looking for all these martial arts to try to find out which was the best one, which one I should learn. And so we didn't really know what the best martial art was at that time. We were just kind of grasping at straws and looking at Black Belt magazine and watching Bruce Lee movies. And Bruce Lee, he's kicking the crap out of 20 guys in Fists of Fury and Enter the Dragon. And I was like, man, if I learn what he knows, I could at least beat one guy, my brother Dave. But
Right.
I was living separately when after I won the Northern California Gymnastics Championship, I moved up to Oregon. I was having some problems. I moved to Oregon, and me and Dave separated. And then he came up to Oregon one day for my birthday, my 16th birthday, and he said something really disrespectful, and we got in a fight. Well, 4 months prior to this, I had quit gymnastics and started taking this Chuck Norris style karate called Tang
This is a
Sudo.
reminder. Take out the garbage.
Alexa, shut up. Uh, 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 so I had taken 4 months of Tang Sudo, and when he said that to me, I was so angry. I challenged him to come out to the front yard, and I was going to beat the crap out of him with my 4 months of Tang Sudo. I didn't know how great a martial art wrestling was. So we go out in the front yard, and I take a swing at him, and he ducks, double legs me, takes me down, gets the mount, pulverizes my face in the hamburger, and I am humiliated. And I thought, screw Tang Sudo, I'm going out for the wrestling team, which I did the very next day. And that started my wrestling career.
How old were you when that
16.
happened? So that's interesting. You're basically saying you weren't thinking about money. You were thinking about what can put me towards being the best fighter I can be.
Yeah, I knew I was not happy with who I was, and I needed to change who I was.
Yeah,
The only way to do that was to learn how to fight, defend myself.
absolutely. I understand that. I'm personally, I got swallowed in by boxing. I was also big, into the whole Jeet Kune Do, and they also, you had Shokasugi and all those guys. But the problem was that I felt like it just was an enormous amount of work to get your legs all the way up, like kicking somebody in the face, like boxing, wrestling, these kind of fighting styles, they made more sense to me. And also, like yourself, I spent time, training in martial arts. And what you discover is the painful truth that a weaker person is just not going to win. It is, until today, I think, very misleading that they teach these women the art of martial arts with this idea that they're going to beat a stronger man. You would have to be incredibly talented to beat out somebody that's way, way above you with martial arts. Whereas, the real skill is you teach your little sister, kick him in the privates, stick to what works. Martial arts, karate and all that stuff, it's very tricky. It's very misleading. So, wrestling is raw. It'll tell you where you're at. And if you're going to lose, you're going to lose, and you're going to try harder and you'll get better. You can't fool it. So I think, we may be on the same page with that kind of thought process.
Yeah, when I was taking Tang Sudo, they never went full contact, really. They you know, just they're just practicing technique. It's kind of like dancing around back and forth. And it wasn't until the UFC came to America that these different martial arts were the idea of going full contact against somebody else of a different martial art had never really been explored that much. And I mean, other than street fights, but uh, when when I saw how grapplers were dominating the UFC, I I I, I started challenging these karate guys to full contact fights, and they would say, "Oh, we can't do that. That's impossible." I'm like, "No, it isn't." And
Right.
so that changed the whole paradigm of the martial arts world. And I got to hand it to the Gracies, and I was really lucky. I had Pedro Sauer come to Provo. I mean, he moved from Rio de Janeiro to Provo, Utah, of all places, in 1991 or two, and he became my jiu-jitsu instructor for 3 years before the UFC. And so I was really fortunate to be one of the few wrestlers that could combine the takedowns and conditioning of wrestling with the submission holds of jiu-jitsu. And then I created my own style, Mark Schultz grappling. I call it martial grappling, but it's
Sounds
weird.
cool.
My name sounds like Mark Schultz, Marshall. But anyway, yeah, that's what I do seminars all over the world now. I'm going to go to South Carolina and then Ireland this in September. Anyway, that's what I do now.
That's awesome. Yeah, you hit a good point over there. When you're practicing martial arts, you're doing these katas and you're pretending. And even when they actually compete, it's for points. Like if you touch here, touch there. Whereas same thing. Like I keep referring back to boxing, but with wrestling, you're gonna find out where you're at. I mean, I remember the first time I stepped in the ring and they put that thing on your head, when you box and you're like, okay, this is going to protect you. No, that's not protecting you. It hurts just as bad whether you wear that or not. And I'm asking my trainer, I was training by Starrett City Boxing Club. And I was like, so what am I wearing this thing for? And he was like, well, when you throw a jab, you twist your hand so that you cut, you break skin so that your next hit hurts more and more and more. And so we're not going to be sending home our guys all bleeding and bruised up just from training. So people have this idea that you're wearing that headgear to feign the pain. Boxing, wrestling, you find out where you are. And martial arts didn't have that. But as you pointed out, nowadays they're all the way. These guys are like aliens. I mean, they have their legs are made of steel. People cracking people. I saw Rogan once interviewing a guy who won the fight, and he tried not to laugh because as the guy was taking the winning interview, his head was swelling. I know that's a horrible thing to laugh at, but like his head was swelling on national TV. You see guys who get their noses almost knocked off. The UFC's taking it to the whole other direction now. But yeah, back then, especially, I mean, like in the 70s, 80s, just until recently, martial arts was something that was more of like a dance than the actual thing. Wrestling, you're gonna find out. You're gonna get choked out. You'll be on your back, or see the lights out, and you're like, okay, I better try harder next time because it's the real thing.
Yeah,
So
when the Gracies came to America and started the UFC, there was no such term as mixed martial arts. When they
right,
had the UFC for the first, I don't know, 10 UFCs or whatever, maybe 12 or something, it was called NHB, no holds barred. But it wasn't really no holds barred. It was really two holds barred, no eye gouging and no
right.
biting. Do anything else. You could pull his ears off, fish hook his mouth, break his fingers, grab his nuts, kick him in the nuts. You could do almost anything. And it was it was really dangerous. So, yeah, it really saved my happiness because I went out a loser in the '88 Olympics, and I thought I was never going to have a chance to come back and go out a winner again until I started training Dave Beneteau to fight in UFC 9, and then he broke his hand in one of our training sessions, and I ended up taking his place, and I won, and I became happy again, and it was just like a gift from God. I mean, it's just there's the things that occurred, the coincidences that happened to create that it was just a miracle. I just I mean, I've believed in God for a long time, but it just reinforced my belief.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you said you got into it for confidence reasons, and I feel that that's very, very common. People have this view of like bodybuilders and fighters that they're like real tough guys, but at the end of the day, most of us have some real deep-rooted weaknesses that started us off. And I don't think it's unhealthy. I don't think that you're hiding it or covering it up. I think you build it up and then you have something, genuine to have confidence in. I mean, I think that's what it comes to, is that some people can fool themselves and some people can have something worth being proud of. And then you're not fighting because you want to compensate is the word, but you're fighting because you found something you're good at and now you're proud of yourself. And now that's the point, is that a lot of kids grow up and they don't have a reason to be confident. And so I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, your ability to defend yourself carries over into everything else you do in life. I mean, if you're not afraid of other people hurting you physically, you're also really not afraid of them hurting you intellectually or psychologically. You
Financially.
Yeah, you just so you just say whatever you want and you become more honest, and if people don't like it, they can just lump it, and it changes your whole being, your whole personality. I mean, look
I
at Joe
agree.
Rogan. That's the most popular podcast in the world because he's
Second
got a lot of
most.
he's a jiu-jitsu guy, and he's a taekwondo guy, and he just says whatever he wants, and people, they appreciate his honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're 100. What you just said right now is just like, wow, where did I hear that? It is the truest thing in the world. If you're not afraid to get hurt and to fight and to stand up for what's right, it carries to everything. I think that it's not even something you need to live by. It's something you will live by. It's not like one of those sayings you have to repeat in the back of your head. It's just there. And I get it. I don't know if I got it as much yesterday as I do today or the day before, but I know that that's your path, is that, whether you're a family man or a parent or an uncle or your friends, but if you know that you're not afraid to stand up for what's right, then you will stand up for what's right as a person, not just in the ring. I agree with that. I agree with that with my whole heart and soul. It's the truest statement you could make.
Yeah, and you you're able to use the fear in your mind as a source of energy instead of a source of paralysis,
Right.
and to be able to channel that. And it's really a huge it's a huge advantage in life to have that skill, and it it makes people happy, even if it's just a rudimentary level of knowledge and conditioning. Wrestling is a sport. It's a simple sport, but it's very difficult. It's made of, well, this is my opinion, it's made of technique, conditioning, and luck. And the conditioning is like the main part of it. The technique is, it's important, but if you're not in condition to drive your opponent into helplessness from fatigue, you have to at least be in good enough condition to avoid your opponent driving you into fatigue. Because once you're fatigued and you're helpless, he can do anything he wants. It doesn't matter what he knows. Doesn't he be the worst technician in the world? And what are you gonna do if I mean, when I was training at Oklahoma, I just got back from Oklahoma a couple of days ago. This is my alma mater, and I just thought about all of the days that I spent just pushing myself to basically suffocation. I mean, we'd walk out of the room with our, it looked like we were participating in some strange clothed water sport because we were completely drenched with sweat. Our shoes would be squishy, and there'd be like this fog in the room, and there'd be puddles of sweat all over the place. And I remember I'm looking out the window one time at the baseball guys that are on full scholarship, just like me, and they're throwing the ball up in the air and catching it. And I'm thinking, God, these guys get the same money I do, and I'm in here fighting for my life, and these guys are.
Right.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's one of those things that pays you back 10 times over. So yeah, the money's not, it's not the reason I do anything really. I mean, I do seminars for money to survive, but it doesn't make me happy to, I don't think I'd be any happier if I was a millionaire as opposed to the way I am now.
That's wonderful, man. That's awesome. Those baseball guys are probably looking in on you thinking, what the hell? What are they? You couldn't pick a funnier sport as an example because what do they do in baseball? Every once in a while, a ball comes in their direction, like, and, and you're
Standing
whistling your brain.
like 90% of the time.
Yeah, the all-American sport. Anyways, I really appreciate having you on. We could talk for hours because I really I appreciate your thought process. I feel like I can relate to you because you speak from the heart and you speak very logically. And as you know, life isn't easy. As you get older, you see life is more unfair than you'd like to believe. But
Oh
for
yeah.
some reason, you understand it. It's like my personal theory is if we were never tested, then how could we grow by the time when it's our time to go? So it's like these growing pains that you hate because you're put in these situations that are insane. Like, why is God testing me this way? Why am I going through this? But then on the other hand, if you didn't, then what did you accomplish by the time, it's time to go? So it's a you got to accept that life isn't easy and you just try to laugh it through. And you know I feel like you're doing a great job of that, man. I feel like you're an inspiration, truly, truly,
Well,
truly.
you appreciate that.
I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much.
You bet. I'm glad to be here. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Thanks. Bye.